If you've been doing employer branding for more than, 30 seconds, you figured out that this is a really complicated job. Mostly because it feels like there are infinite ways to do the job, and that's not completely off base. You want it to be a completely video-driven strategy for employer brand? Yeah, you can do that. You want it to be all about the website and copy and job postings? Okay, do that. You want it to be all about advocacy? Yeah, sure. Social media? Okay. You want it to be about leadership-driven stuff? Okay, you can do that too. Internal mobility? Retention? Yeah, all those things are on the table. So, in this video special edition of Employer Brand Minute, we're going to talk about the 16 things every employer brand person needs to know. Well, that's not true. That's impossible. There's no way you could know all these things. But employer branding has 16 core competencies, and you can use any of these to get the job done. And the more you know, the better. You don't have to be an expert at all of them, but you need to know that these are some of the available avenues to you. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. There's a button down here somewhere. When you subscribe, you'll be alerted to all the updates and all the new videos as they come. Also, if you're into employer branding and you haven't subscribed to my newsletter, I'm not sure what you're waiting for. I mean, it is free and it will keep you sharp. It will get you a little smarter every single week about employer branding. Go to employerbrandheadlines.substack.com. All right, let's talk about the core competencies, what it takes to do the job. Let me be clear. You are not expected to do all these things. You are not expected to be an expert in all these things. But think of these as the different doorways to success. And the more you know how to use different doors, the more likely you will be to be successful because you'll be flexible. You'll be able to take advantage of opportunities as they arise. You won't be an expert at all of them, but you might be an expert at one or two or maybe even more of them. And that's great. Be sure to leverage that. So the first core competency of employer brand is strategy. And that, by the way, is like one of my favorites. Strategy is defined as, it's not a plan, it's not just thinking better, it's a thing. Strategy is how do you take your own strengths and apply them to the competitor's, opponent's, situation's weak spot to achieve a desired result. Now that strategy means, well, a lot, actually. It can be your personal strategy for getting good work done. It could be the talent strategy overall. And by the way, there's a great case to be made that employer brands should effectively own true talent strategy. TA leadership does not always think of strategy in that way. They generally think of it as all the tactics and things we're going to do. True strategy thinking is something employer brands should be great at. The second core competency is all about designing your position. You could think of that as you're designing your actual employer brand or your EVP. Now, this is a very structural, architectural kind of thing because it's not just a tagline, it's not just a cool thing on your website, it's a concept. And that concept has to trickle down and connect to every audience you want to reach. That is not something you just up and do. You just don't suddenly decide to do it. And that's the reason why a lot of people go to consultants or agencies to get that done. By the way, if you'd like to build your own employer brand, come find me. I'm at employerbrandlabs.com. I offer a class to walk you through exactly that process. Third core competency, managing the candidate journey. Understanding what a candidate has to go through to get the job. Look, I pause. Recruiters have been doing recruiting for a long time, and I think one of the outcomes of doing it for a long time is you kind of forget what it's like to be a candidate. Not a knock on them, it's just one of those things where you see it all the time and you kind of forget it. A lot of times your job is going to be to remind people, hey, this is the journey, and understand that journey. And the more you understand that journey, the more you can find opportunities for you to kind of stick your messages in or to insert ideas or to massage touch points so that that larger brand is activated in the candidate's mind across the entire journey. So understanding what the journey is, what it looks like, and how you can leverage it, huge competency. Okay, I got a whole list down here. That's why I keep looking down here. It's a long list. Content marketing. This is where I started. This is where I cut my teeth. I was a content marketer before I became an employer brander. That's really where I developed my sense of digital strategy. And to some extent, I bet that comes through because I'm the guy who makes all these videos and podcasts and articles and books and stuff, right? I make a lot of content. Understanding that content is the way you package an idea and serve it up to the right people. That's content marketing strategy, and really crucial in terms of getting employer brand messaging out there because it's effectively riding the boat of content marketing strategy. And if you understand content marketing, you understand what makes sense. It's not necessarily say the same message over and over and over again until they cry uncle. Sometimes it's about, okay, how do I shape this to fit this channel? How do I shape it to fit that channel? What's the order they should be getting these messages in? What's the likely order they will receive them in? All that lives under the world of content marketing. Okay, 5, general creative, right? This could be you're a Photoshop expert, an Illustrator expert, you're a great graphic designer, you've got a flair for design, and I don't mean that pejoratively, though I'm sure it sounds that way. Understanding creative, understanding that your font choice matters, your colors matter. I wish I was a better creative. I'm a really, really mediocre creative. I love doing it, really mediocre. One of the things that I know personally I'm bad at, color theory. I have an art minor from college. I wish I had taken a color theory class because color just, I just like blue, I just like orange. It means a lot. Being good at creative, it could be copywriting, it could be user experience, it could be visual creative, all of that matters. Thinking in a creative and leveraging creative, super core competency. Next, research. You can't do anything right until you know who you're talking to. Now, chances are you're not an employer brander hiring a bunch of other employer branders. You're hiring nurses, data scientists, electricians, developers, salespeople. And if you're not actually one of them, you need to learn how they think. You need to learn what they care about, and that takes real research. Next, if I have an Achilles heel, this is the one. This is the one. And I know people who are so good at this, and it just blows my mind. I'm aghast. I'm just stunned by how good they can be and how impactful it can be. And that is a couple of ways of describing it: stakeholder management, collaboration, consensus building, being social. You could just lump it under the concept of politics. Can you get people from around the office, from around the company, people who are way higher than you, to agree to what you want them to do? If you have no authority, spoiler, you don't, how do you get them to do what you want them to do? That's a real skill. And that is not something everybody has. Now, I have a political science background, and trust me, I'm the least political bone in my body. I just don't think that way. I don't process information that way. I don't engage people that way. And so when I think of people who are good at it, it's amazing what they've been able to achieve. By the way, the people you think of as the vice presidents of employer brand, they excel at this skill. This is the skill that generally gets the big chair. Okay, next, reputation management. All those review sites where people can leave reviews. Understanding how people access that information, how they engage with that information, what you can do to either do a pattern interrupt or to change the shape or the frame of that information, incredibly critical. I am happy to rail against review sites. Many of them are not good. Some aren't bad. I have no problems with some. We can talk about that separately if you like. But in general, they're still a huge part of how candidates learn about your company. They want to hear from employees, past, present, or whatever, and that is the place they're going to get that information. So understanding how to leverage that resource is crucial. And by the way, leveraging those resources isn't like leveraging any other resource, which is why it's a separate competency. It's one you can learn, relatively easy, but you still need to know it. Number 9, media, channel, and tool evaluation. Oh boy. To be fair, the industry does not make this easy. For the most part, the industry, and when I say industry, I mean talent acquisition and even HR to some extent, all the tools and things that vendors want to sell you, they've all learned to say it the same way. I could pick 5 companies who offer completely different tool sets, but if I look at their websites, their homepage of their websites, they all say the same thing. They all talk about how they attract the best candidates. Well, how? What is the means by which you do that? It's really hard to do. Managing all the tech stack and understanding all the tools you have available to you and evaluating which are best, understanding how to fit them together. That is a place where, HRIS and TA Ops, they excel there. So even if you're not excellent at it, knowing how to speak that language, knowing how to think through that process of evaluating a new tool, do we go with A or B, or do we kind of throw away C because now we don't need it because we have A and B now? That is a skill set, no question. Recruiting basics, that's number 10. How is that only number 10? If you don't know how recruiting gets done, what are you doing all day? You got to know the basics. That doesn't mean you have to come from recruiting. I know plenty of employer branders who come from recruiting who are very successful, and I know plenty who don't, myself included. But understanding how recruiting gets done is crucial, absolutely crucial. If you don't understand, if your recruiting strategy is purely outreach driven, purely sourcing driven, purely hiring manager driven, purely ad driven, purely content driven, purely consumer brand awareness driven, there are lots of strategies here that could be taken advantage of. And recruiters adjust to fit. And if you're not aligning with them, you're in trouble. You're not going to get your strategies, your ideas accepted, adopted, and leveraged. Next, job postings. Okay, we could talk all day about job postings, and yes, they're not great. But even when they are, they're still complicated. They're still not like amazing. There are very, 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 very few job postings that you'd be like, ooh, I want to read this. No one reads them for fun. They're completely utilitarian. However, they will and still are and will be for a long time like the coin of the realm, right? Can you imagine a time 10 years from now when there won't be job postings? Maybe, but I don't know that we're going to get past it. We've been using them for 50 years. We might as well keep using them, or just assume we're going to keep using them. That means know how to write them, know how to use them, know how to think around the ATS and what the ATS will let you do. Figure out how to get creative about how to add headlines. And by the way, we have a whole video on adding headlines. You should watch that about that. How do bullets lay out? Can you embed graphics? Can you embed videos in your job postings? Got a video about that. You should watch that if that's interesting to you. How to write them. There are schools of thought that say you have to have bullets and you shouldn't have bullets, and I don't have a dog in that fight, but thinking and knowing how to write effective job postings that people want to engage with, that shape your employer brand, that set the frame for your employer brand, crucial. Next, metrics and analytics. Ooh, that's a toughie. Yeah, you kind of have to know it. And you should know how to report your own metrics. And there's a video about how to report your own metrics. You can watch that if that's up your alley. But in the end, if you don't understand how to look at a situation, measure the situation, and measure your impact, how do I put this delicately? You won't be in that job for too long. If you can't show how you're effective, useful, and valuable, why are they paying you? Sorry to be blunt, but you need to understand metrics and reporting. If you don't, you're in for a long, long fight. By the way, no one likes metrics. No one likes to do their own reporting. I kind of almost like it, and I think I like it the most than anybody I've ever met. It's not fun, but it's crucial. Okay, next, budgeting. I'm glad I put budgeting next to metrics, i.e. things no one likes to do. Yeah, if you don't understand how to look at the given year, and depending on how your company does budgeting, and trust me, I've been at a lot of companies, and I swear not one of them has done it the same as another. They're all completely individual. So whether you have to plan for a year-long budget, or it's a quarter-by-quarter basis, or you know that about January 3rd, whatever was planned goes out the window for whatever leadership says it goes on, you got to understand it. You got to understand how to play the game, how to get the resources you need. We can talk all about, how to leverage constraints, but ultimately, the more you can grab every single year or every single quarter, the more options you have to do interesting work, to take advantage of new opportunities, of new channels, of new tools, of new ads, new whatever, right? Money makes that happen. And unless you know how to play the budget game, you're not getting any money, and you need some money. I mean, yes, I've got a whole video on how you can build an employer brand for $400. It's doable. Could I have done it a lot faster and a lot easier with a lot more money? Yes, I could have. That's the message there. 14, when I get 10 and then 4, 14. This is not my favorite. I hate this. This is me pinching my nose, and I hate this. Event management. Oh, I'm bad at event and project management. So bad. I dislike it. I dislike it so much. I spent a year in event management as a digital strategist, so I kind of know it from the inside. Not my thing. It's so not my thing, right? So understanding how to put on an event, how to attract attention to it, sell tickets, get attendance, get people to show up, get them to have an experience while they're there, how to manage that process and leverage it on the back end, applying that same idea to projects and programs, all that stuff, useful. And that is, I have not done a good job there. For me, and this may be useful to you, get a friend who's good at it. There are people who love to do this stuff. I don't understand it, but they do. So make that friend. Get someone to help you build that. All right, down to the final two. Number 15, internal and external advocacy. How do you encourage people to speak up, to talk about the brand to their audiences? This stuff is crucial because they know audiences who will never ever talk to you, who you would never be able to reach in a million years. But to them, it's second nature. If you're hiring nurses, the fastest way to talk to nurses is to have another nurse talk to them. They know more nurses, they speak the right language. Understanding how to get that first nurse to talk about the brand, to understand how to leverage the brand, what makes sense and what doesn't, what aligns and what doesn't, super, super crucial. From an internal standpoint, getting people to know what the brand is. It's really hard to do this job when the rest of the company doesn't understand what the brand is. You want to take advantage of them and their networks and their audiences and their voices and their vernaculars to specific audiences. But if they don't know the brand and you encourage them to talk, what are they going to talk about? So you got to understand how to work an internal audience. Last one. This is either the most important or the least important. I can't tell. Business acumen. And by the way, acumen's a fun word. It just is. Look, I did a whole video on businesses only care about three things: making money, saving money, extending the brand to new audiences. That's what business acumen is. Understanding how businesses act, work, and think and talk. If you understand how the business works, you can engage with them. They'll be much more willing to engage with you and play your little employer branding game and see where it takes them. If you don't speak that language, you're in trouble. If you want to learn more, there's a whole video on that. I'll put a link right here. Thanks so much for listening. That was 16 core competencies. Do not fret if you are not experts in a lot of them. I'm not. I don't know anybody who's an expert in more than 2 or 3 of these. Just know that these are the available options. These are the ways you can make a difference at your company. Thanks so much for listening for this very, very long edition of the Employer Brand Minute. I'll see you next time. Bye.